Alright, welcome to Ace Your UX Interview. I am the Denver UXer, Doug Collins, here to help you ace all the interview questions you are going to face at your next UX job interview. So today we're talking about tell us your UX design process. This is one that you see at just about every UX interview you ever go to. And what your employer is looking for is they want to know, do you know the basics? And there are a number of different ways to phrase this process, but they're looking from a very specific sort of basic level. Do you understand what the UX process and what a UX process is and what it might look like and what the different steps are within that process? Because if you can't elaborate on what that process is, they're going to think that you don't know the first thing about UX design. So let's go ahead and talk about what a process might look like. So from the user-centered design perspective, there are 5 steps to a process. Empathize with the users, define a problem or an idea or an issue to resolve, ideate ideas to resolve that issue, create a prototype, and then test whether or not that prototype works. And what's kind of key to keep in mind here is you can regurgitate everything that comes from sort of a user-centered design perspective, which I suppose is fine. But they want to know what your process is and why you do what you do. And if you've worked at a job as a UX professional and you have a slightly different process at your job, then maybe you want to explain why you use that particular process. So for me, I work at a company right now that does research and design and development for the defense and intelligence industry. So our vocabulary is a little bit different, our process is a little bit different. This product is old. It's been going on for I think a decade and a half at this point in time, but they've only had a design team for about a year. So we kind of came into the middle of this. And because of that, we use some different terminology to sort of make things a bit more approachable for the people that we work with. And we also use a few different steps that are maybe a little bit different. So the first thing that we talk about when we talk about our sort of design and UX design process is defining the problem. So what we mean by defining a problem is we want to figure out what exactly it is that we're solving. And we do this by looking at data, metrics, analytics to sort of figure out where the issues in the design are currently. And see if we can pin down any pain points through click tracking, that sort of thing, and see if we can, see if we can figure out exactly sort of what the issue is. From there we might do some user interview and some user testing to make sure that what we've kind of pinned down from our data and metrics reviews is actually a problem and one that's actually worth solving. Usually it is, and if that's the case, then what we're going to do is we're going to start to strategize an approach. This is where we're all doing information architecture and doing different UX exercises to help us understand sort of how the user is currently flowing through things and how they might flow through things better. Woo! And that's kind of another key point, just to kind of go off topic here a little bit. If you get tongue-tied or that sort of thing, don't let it throw you off. Just keep going. It's like playing a song. Just do your best, keep going. If you've ever played an instrument, you know you can't stop for the rest of the band to catch up with you. If you've made a mistake, you just gotta plow right on through. It's the same thing with an interview. So for me, I've tripped over my own words there, so we're gonna keep going. Talk about strategizing an approach. I work in exercises. So this might be doing things like user flows, sort of understanding sort of the current state and how they're flowing through our app now and how that might change. We'll also do maybe some user journeys, and we'll also maybe pin down some personas. One of the things that can be very difficult to fix a problem if you don't understand who exactly is using your product and what goals they're trying to accomplish with that. From here, we're also going to establish success metrics. That's very key and very important when we talk about a UX design process, because we want to make sure that we have something to measure against. These should be measurable data, metrics, or analytics that you're going to say, based off the end result of this project, success looks like we have increased conversions by 33%, or in our case, maybe we've increased our number of active users per month by 5% or whatever it might be. From there we talk about iterating good ideas, and this is all about making sure that the ideas that we create are quality and that they're really solving the problem. So we're going to create some low and mid fidelity mock-ups in this case, and we're going to bring in the team. So it's not just the people in the UX design team. One of the great things about where I work right now is I don't know if it's great, but we work in kind of a small room. There's not any windows or anything like that. We're all kind of in a sort of a small, confined space, but it does mean that we always have an eye on sort of what each other's doing. It's very easy for us to turn around and sort of communicate or turn our backs on each other if we need some downtime. In this case, we can bring our team members in and work through and show some of the low and mid fidelity mockups as we work through them to get feedback from other members of our team. It also means that we're bringing in people from the development team. We're bringing in our business stakeholders. We're bringing in what we call our ops team, which are people that work directly with our clients. We can't, in my case, always bring in users at this step, but if we can, great. And certainly the more feedback we get, the better off that we can be. Sort of the next step beyond that is we're testing the design. We want to make sure that it actually works. So we're going to set up this design, put up some mock data into our system, and make sure that the design that we've created actually solves a problem. So we might do some split testing or some remote and in-person testing here. Might do some 5-second testing, any sort of usability test that you might have that you could run on a low or mid-fidelity prototype. Certainly something that we'll set up and try and see, is this intuitive? Does it solve a problem? Before we go about actually trying to implement that design, because if it doesn't solve the problem, if we aren't getting sort of the change in metrics or flow that we usually expect to get, we want to go back to that step and say, the last step, and go and iterate new ideas. New good ideas, I should say. Next step, of course, is implementing the design. So for us, that means creating high fidelity mockups. High fidelity meaning everything's pixel perfect and interactive. You could actually use it as you would the normal site. We'll have a dev rally meeting or a dev handoff meeting where we're going to meet with our developers who should be involved in this process all throughout from step one. But we're going to meet with them to sort of update them on the results of our testing and the direction that we're going, any changes that have been made to design, and formally give them the okay to start going on that work. From there, we're also going to make sure that we're giving good development support. So as they're developing, we're going to stand-ups, we're attending demos, we're available and listening for questions, we're checking in and making sure that development is not having any issues or any questions with what we're trying to resolve. And if it's possible and it's necessary, then we'll go ahead and try and remove some roadblocks for them too, and sometimes we can help out with that. Lastly, after everything's been deployed and everything is up and running and good to go, we're going to QA the results. So this might be doing some post-launch testing just to make sure that everything is working from a usability perspective correctly. When we talk about QAing the results, we don't mean that we're looking for bugs or that we're looking for any sort of fault in functionality. We're looking to make sure that from a usability perspective, everything functions as the way that we designed it, and it's actually working to solve those problems. We're also going to do some metadata and analytics review to make sure that we are meeting our success metrics. Remember, we talked about setting our success metrics a little bit earlier. This is the point where we start to look at those pieces and say, okay, are we actually being successful in accomplishing what we're trying to achieve? And then from there, we're going to go back to square one. So we're going to, after we've done some usability testing and done some metrics, data and analytics reviews, we're going to look back at that data and say, okay, what else can we make better? What's sort of the next thing on our roadmaps? That's the process that I have, and that's my personal process that I use on my team and my job. Your process is probably going to vary a little bit from that, as it should, from person to person, sort of what you do and what your professional responsibilities are and what your personal specialty is. Your process might be slightly different depending upon who you are. So that's it. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much. Of course, please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe for more UX and UX interview tips. And comment what interview question you'd like to see me handle next. You can find me on Twitter at DougCollinsUX. My website is denveruxer.com. Whoever you are, wherever you might be, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and an excellent user experience.